Hello, I'm Wagner Acevedo, and I am presenting on food deserts in the Boston area for my final Urban Sociology project. I chose this topic because I have lived in the food area in Boston, and I know what it's like. I also have worked in the area, which I'll mention later, and this Boston area I'm familiar with since I lived there since I moved to the country in 2011. All right, for starters, what is a food desert? The CDC defines food deserts as areas where residents have limited access to affordable and nutritious foods. And these areas are often low income and mostly people of color due to multiple factors in history like redlining and other stuff that has led these areas to become victim of of food insecurity. These areas often lack reliable transportation to go to a grocery store. Even if grocery stores are closed, though, the prices are often too high for people to afford. This is an important issue in urban sociology because it reflects and reinforces the systemic inequality that has been set up in these areas. And big cities often have food deserts, just like Boston. So, for Boston background, the population is about 650,000 people, according to the 2023 census. Of those people, about 25% Black, about 20% Latinx, and around 10% Asian. The neighborhoods like Dorchester, Mattapan, and Roxbury are most affected. These are areas where food deserts are mostly seen. There's a high percent of people of color in these areas, with fewer full service grocery stores, and people mostly rely on corner stores to cook and do other stuff. Higher rates in these areas, there is higher rates of diet related illnesses like diabetes, which will be mentioned later as to why that is. Overall, Boston is one of the many cities that are victim of redlining and urban renewal, which resulted in decades of underinvestment in these communities, and which is why they are food deserts today. Urban renewal was when they destroyed neighborhoods and remodeled it in order to bring more money in, and usually people that moved in were wealthy white people, and in these areas, the people that used to live in there were displaced with no help from the government. All right, so this is a map of redlining in Boston. As you can see, Roxbury, some red, South End, South Boston. I actually live right around the yellow, which mid Dorchester. That's where I live now. And yeah, just look at the clear correlation between redlining and food insecurity rates in Boston. So you can see, it's rather obvious how directly impacted it was from redlining. Food deserts in Boston. Not having a vehicle in Boston makes getting groceries tedious. Many families can't go grocery shopping and end up buying ingredients for corner stores, which are usually at higher prices. Many families also rely on fast food to feed families because it's cheaper and faster than having to go and cook and having to buy expensive ingredients to have a healthy meal. The MBTA, which is the bus system, transit system in Boston, is an option, but when you go grocery shopping in a bus, it really limits how much you can buy. Because you have to think about taking the bags back home. So really, like, it limits how much you can buy in one trip, which is why having good transportation, which it is, but MBTA is one of the best transportations in the country, but still the fact that it limits how much one can carry is a big issue as to why people don't do it. This is a map of the distance to the nearest supermarket in Boston. As you can see, the darker it is, the 1 mile, it means that's farther than a mile. So as you can see, there's a lot of red. A lot of people are not willing to walk that mile just to buy a lot of, well, they can walk, but it's, as I said earlier, it's limited to how much they can carry in their own hands. And as you can see, there's a lot of red, especially in the areas I've mentioned, Rosendale, Roxbury. Yeah. Social issues from food deserts. So a healthy diet consists of a variety of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, fat-free or low-fat dairy, and protein-rich foods and healthful oils. And living in a food desert limits access to these, which leads to a poor diet. These poor diets contribute to diet-related diseases like high blood pressure and cardiovascular diseases, which is why people of color experience these diseases disproportionately compared to white people, because the areas with food deserts are mostly minorities, people of color, and because people of color have limited access in these areas, they resort to not being able to have consistent good diet. So some of the health effects of living in the food desert include higher incidence of obesity, increased prevalence of diabetes, and other weight-related conditions, especially in children. Other conditions caused by long-term nutritional deficiencies as well. So, food desert is an example of spatial inequality. Supermarkets and healthy food options are often located in wealthier and wider areas, which is a result from racialized planning in our government, like redlining and racist zoning. This is seen from the fact, that food deserts are predominantly affect Black and Latinx immigrants and immigrant communities. This is a quote from the CDC that really stood out to me. It said, "Where you live can determine how long you live," which is very true. Having access to these foods, and not even just the food, and it being affordable, it's not something that everyone has the privilege of experiencing. What are some actions being taken to combat these Boston food deserts? So the Food Project is a nonprofit youth program that trains youths in sustainable agriculture, also educates them on social issues like food deserts. The Food Project was actually my first job, and when I was 16, I learned a lot about food deserts, and it wasn't just food deserts, just about many issues in like a social country, like social aspects of the country. And the Food Project operates urban farms. It distributes food through community share, agriculture, and donations. They also set up farmers market and food deserts. And so we used to have, one of my memories was that we had a food desert in Dudley Street in Boston, which is an area with a lot of corner stores. And we would sell fresh produce, and a lot of people would come in every Thursday to buy these produce. The Food Project also has a raised beds installation program so that people could grow their own foods. This is because people in Boston, a lot of land in Boston is contaminated with lead due to the fact like people used to burn down for their houses and stuff for insurance money, and the paint had lead in it, so it contaminated a lot of land in Boston. Which is why they can't grow their own food. So the raised beds is a program people apply to, and we used to go there and install the beds with good quality dirt, and they will install whatever they want. Another nonprofit is the Daily Table, which they often worked with the Food Project when I worked there, and it's a nonprofit that operates community grocery stores in Greater Boston. It's dedicated to making healthy foods affordable. Action taken to combat Boston food deserts is the HIP program. This is a program that offers SNAP recipients 50% off fresh produce at eligible farmer markets, which the Food Project accepted when I used to work there. They probably still do. And this encourages families or low-income families to buy more fruits and vegetables. Another program is Fresh Truck, which is a grocery store on wheels that travels to areas and households that need it most. So basically, they go to places, food deserts, and to households that can't, drive to the grocery store and drop off fresh produce. Another program is Boston Natural Area Network, and they have over 200 community gardens that they manage, which is a really good way to keep the neighborhood healthy by having access to healthy foods. What else could be done? Well, these are my own ideas, and after the damage done by our government, all these decades ago, they should definitely prioritize these areas that are suffering from it now. They can implement a lot of laws that could, just help people with food insecurities. The government should provide grants for opening grocery stores in these food desert areas. They can also implement grocery delivery services for people that live in food deserts. They should also fund programs like the food projects so that they can reach more neighborhoods more efficiently and be able to spread out their goal more throughout Massachusetts, because Boston is not the only area where food deserts are seen. And yeah, overall, food deserts are a result of decades of racism and implemented laws that held back our communities from thriving. And food desert affects people of color in many ways, in the education and in just health. And yeah, this was very interesting to look into, especially since I was part of the food project myself. And yeah, this was a great experience. Thank you.